Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. This time I want to show you how to make quick cartoon house illustration like this, and I want to make this as short as possible for you, so I will go quicker over some things. If you're new to the Blender and the world of 3D and you're interested in more in-depth, slow, step-by-step explanation, I recommend you to go ahead and check out my website polygonrunway.com. You can find the link in the description. There you can find courses specifically designed to get you from zero to hero in Blender in the shortest time amount possible. So if you're interested, go ahead and check it out. And now, without further ado, let's just switch to layout view and start with the empty Blender scene. I will start by defining the proportions for the scene, so I'll press Shift A and add a plane. Now press Tab into edit mode. Now tab in and press S, then 4 enter to scale this 4 times. And right away we'll define a terrain, so I will extrude this down a little bit, and now just press A to select all and Shift N to fix normals if they're flipped. And now I'll press Ctrl B, then V to bevel this, and let's increase the number of segments with the mouse wheel to something like this, like 5 segments should be enough. And now I'll press A to select all, E, and extrude this down. And don't forget to press A to select all and Shift N to recalculate normals in case they're flipped. And now we can just reuse some of the geometry, so let's press 3 for face select the top face, and I'll press Shift D, right click to release, and P enter to separate the selection into a new object like this. And now I will tab out and select the new object, tap into that one and just extrude it. So we are creating something like a sandwich composition here with layers for the ground, for the road, and at last for the grass. So let's do that right now. And here I want to separate this once again, so press Shift D, right click to release, P enter to separate. So we created a new object there as well. And now we'll need to cut this, so let's tab in, let's look from the top, and I'll press K for a knife tool and do a cut somewhere here, and press C, click to finish the cut and enter. Now we can just select this face and delete, and what's left to do is to create a similar bevel here as well. So I'll press 7 on the numpad for a top view once again, then Ctrl B and V and do a bevel like this. Now press A to select all and E to extrude. So this will serve as a base for our scene. And now we can make it look nicer, so we can give it some Bevel Modifier and smooth shading. So let's select the bottom one here and let's right click and shade smooth. And now go to the object data properties and in the normal section enable auto smooth and ramp it up all the way to 180 degrees because the Bevel Modifier will take care of that. So let's go to modifiers, add the Bevel Modifier, and let's reduce the amount. And I will enable wireframe overlay to see what I'm doing and increase the number of segments to 2 and reduce this even more. And in the shading section I will enable harden normals. And as I'll be reusing this Bevel Modifier, I want to go ahead and enable arc miter here and disable clamp overlap. This will serve as our Bevel Modifier, so right now we can just shift click these two objects and this one as last, and click this little arrow here in the Bevel Modifier and choose copy to select it. This is a new thing in the Blender 2.93 where you can just copy the modifier like this. You don't need to link all of the modifiers, so that's very handy. And now let's select both of those and shade them smooth. So we have some base for our project, and now let's create that house. So shift right click here to place the cursor, and I'll press Shift A and add a plane. Now tab in and scale it up, and I'll extrude the box like this. So first of all, I want to subdivide this, so I'll press Ctrl R and increase the cuts with the mouse wheel right here, and do the same thing here on the other side. And now we can bevel the corners a little bit. Let's select these edges on the side and press Ctrl B and bevel them similarly to the ground object, just like this. And now we can press Ctrl R to cut in the middle, so we split this into 2 equal parts. Let's create some topology for the windows. So I'll press Ctrl R and create a new cut here and one more here, and now we can Alt Shift click this one again and bevel those so we made them the same size. So press Ctrl B and reduce the segments to 1, so we are creating a space for windows like this. Okay, that should be fine. And now what I want to do is to scale these middle parts a little bit so we have some more space to work with. I will press 3 for face select, I'll click this loop right here, press S then X and scale it up just like this. And do the same thing here, press S then Y to scale it on Y axis and create something like this. And now it's time to extrude windows. So let's create one more cut right here and you will see why. I want to go back to the face select by pressing 3 and select these faces right there to create an entrance. And now let's shift click this face right here and control click there. That'll be our first window, and let's shift click here and control click right there to select that loop as well, and we can go all the way here. So this will be our window. So let's now press Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and we can go inside and enable even thickness by pressing S and hold shift for smaller increments and create an extrusion just like that. And now just a little detail, let's select these faces on the roof, let's press I to inset and E to extrude, so we have some detail there. Okay, so that's for the house, and now what's left to do is just right click shade smooth, go ahead, enable auto smooth 180 degrees, and let's copy that bevel modifier once again, and we have some simple stylized house ready. Let's now go ahead and proceed with some trees and some grass. Press Shift A and create a single vert that's part of the extra objects add-on. And now I'll switch to vertex select by pressing 1. Let's look from the front, and I will extrude this vertex on Z axis and create some branches, then continue extrusion from the middle and create something like this. We can now extrude to the side a little bit. Now let's look from the top and move these vertices around so it's more evenly distributed. And we can now tab out and let's add a skin modifier. I will tab in, press A to select all, and press Ctrl A to reduce the radius on these vertices. And now select the bottom one and press Ctrl A to make it larger, and E, Z, and extrude down so it goes underneath the grass object there. And now tab out and press Ctrl 2 to add a subdivision modifier. Right click and shade smooth, and just enable smooth shading on the skin modifier. And now we can see there are some glitches, and we can easily fix those by going into the edit mode and moving these vertices around to find some better placement and better angles that don't glitch. Okay, something like this. Should work just fine. So this will be a base for our tree, and now let's press Shift A and let's add cube, move it up, and I will tab in and scale it down. And right now we can add a bevel modifier here as well. So let's shift click the house and copy the modifier to select it. And here we can just increase the amount of the bevel, increase the segments, the tree, right click, shade smooth, and enable that auto smoothing so it looks a little bit better. And maybe we can reduce this a little bit. And now I want to rotate this so it's skewed a little bit, and basically create very stylized tree by just duplicating this around. Alt D to create a link duplicate, and I will just duplicate a few cubes around like this to create that tree. I think this one is too much. Okay, so that's for the tree, and now I'll just select all of this with the tree trunk as last and press Ctrl P and parent, so we can easily scale this up and move it around. And now for the grass blades, there will be very simple object. I'll just shift right click here to place the cursor, and now press Shift A and let's add a mesh. And I'll add cylinder and reduce the segments to something like 12. Tab in, make it smaller, just like this. Press 3 for face select, bring it up, and now Ctrl B, increase the number of segments to create a shape like this. Now I'll tab out, right click, shade smooth, and now press Alt D to duplicate and R twice to enable trackball rotation and rotate it like that. And now Alt D, R Z to rotate it around, and once again maybe. So we have something like this, and now we can change the scale of these, so there's a little bit of that variation. And now by holding Shift, let's just select all of them with the center one as last, and let's press Ctrl J to join them, so we have a single mesh in place. And let's scale it up a little bit. Let's set up snapping to face, and now we can press Alt D, and by holding Ctrl we can snap it anywhere we want. So let's create few of these grass blades just like that, and let's vary them in size and rotation as well. So we can press RZ a few times and rotate them in place so they don't look too much similar. And we have some stylized grass and a tree. And basically this is almost ready. Let's just give it some more details. So maybe make it larger. And now let's snap the cursor to the roof. So I will tab in, select this edge, hold Shift S and cursor to select it. Now tab out, and I'll add a plane here, tab in and scale it up. Press 1 for vertex select, press Ctrl B, then V to bevel this a little bit. And press A and extrude. Okay, and now hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it once again. And let's press Shift A and add another plane. Scale it up tiny bit, and let's create a few cuts with Ctrl R, just like this. And now let's go for edge select by pressing 2, Alt Shift click these loops, and press Ctrl B and reduce the number of cuts, just like that. And now let's switch to the face select and deselect this face in the middle. Press X and delete faces, press A to select all and extrude this up. So we are creating a simple solar panel here, and basically we can now transfer some of that bevel modifiers. So right click, shade these smooth, and enable auto smooth for them as well. And we can just select the house as last and transfer that bevel modifier there. There might be some glitches for smaller objects like this, so what you need to do is just to reduce the amount of the beveling. And now let's parent this. And I want to rotate it and place it like this. And one last detail I want to create here to balance out the composition is to create a fire hydrant here. So shift right click the cursor there, press Shift A, and let's add a circle, and I will reduce this to 12 segments. We'll use subdivision modifier anyway. Now tab in, go for vertex select and scale this down just like this. Now press F to fill, and let's do extrude. Now extrude once again, scale it down and extrude up. Okay, that should work. And now we can create a cut in the middle here, so Ctrl R, create the cut there, and let's bevel it. So press Ctrl B, create the bevel, and increase one segment. Make it so that these new polygons look square like this. And now we can select these four, right click and use loop tools. You need to activate the add-on in the preferences, and we can choose the circle command, which will create a circular loop like this. And now we can just press E to extrude and bevel this top part as well and move it up a tiny bit. So basically this is it, and now we can tab out, press Ctrl 2 to add the subdivision modifier, and we'll need to add some supporting loops. So first of all, let's shade this smooth and tab back in, and we'll press Ctrl R to create loop where needed to create these sharper edges like that here as well. And basically this can serve as a simple shape for fire hydrant there. Our scene is basically ready, and let's now give it some materials. I will Shift S, cursor to world origin, and create a plane for a background and scale it up. I will look from the front and place it down, so press G then Z and move it down like this. And I will use the PR Isocam add-on. You can find the link in the description and download it to create my isometric camera. So I'll create the true Isocam here, and let's set in the output resolution to 1600 to 1200, so we are 4:3 ratio, and let's move this up tiny bit, so press G then Z and move it up. Okay, and we are ready for some materials now, so let's hold Z and switch to material preview, and we can start with the background. Go to the materials, create a new material, and I want to give this like a blue violet color, something like this for now. Let's select the ground. That should be brownish, a little bit darker color like this, maybe more into the orange. We are in the stylized illustration realm, so we can afford some creative choices. And now let's create a gray, a little bit bluish maybe material for the sidewalk, and some really nice vibrant green color here for the grass. Maybe reduce the lightness a little bit, and something like this should work. And we can give the same material here for the tree as well, and we can use the same brown material for the tree that we used for the ground. We'll see how that looks later. And for the grass, the same green again. And let's now create a new material for the house and leave it white. And let's create the red material here for the hydrant. Okay, something like this. And now let's use the gray color for the solar panels, and maybe some blue here. Okay, now only thing left to do is to add some windows, and basically we can just tab in and select these faces right there that belong to windows. Create a new material slot, new material, and click assign. And now just switch the color to black and reduce the roughness all the way to 0. This is the base for our illustration. The materials are done, and now for some lighting. Here I prefer very simple lighting, and a lot of you were asking about lighting tutorials lately, so I've decided for this one, let's make it a complete scene. I will tell you how I do the lighting here. Basically here I'll use the simplest lighting setup that I use for my daytime stylized renders, where I use the sunlight and one additional area light to create an ambience. So let's press Shift A and let's add a sunlight. Now I'll just bring it down and hold period to switch to the 3D cursor, and I'll press R, X 45 degrees, or let's go just 30. So RX 30 degrees and RZ 45 minus. So now we are perpendicular to camera, and we can now go here and turn on the scene lights and scene world to see what this does. And we'll need to increase the strength to something like 3, and maybe a little bit warmer tone like this. And maybe we can go all the way to 5. We'll see how that goes. And now to create that ambience, let's press Shift A and let's add an area light, bring it up, make it larger, and now press RX 45 minus to place it here, and now RZ 45 to place it facing directly opposed to the camera. And now let's just modify to something really warm, and let's set this to 500 for example, or we can maybe go to something like 1500, so it's really strong, and this will create all the difference in the world. If you hide that light, you can see this has some shadows and it looks 3D, but it's kind of flat. But if you add some ambience like this in form of area light, which has a nice fall off like this, and give it some additional color, you can create a really nice scene ambience. And now, speaking of ambience, the next step is to go to the world properties and give this some color to, first of all, we can increase the lightness so we feel those shadows a little bit in. And now let's switch this to something violet or blue, which will kind of blend this together, and you can see the difference right away. So let's now go to the render properties color management section, and this is the next place where we can fix things up a little bit. We can enable medium high contrast here and play with the exposure to make the scene brighter or darker for the matter. And now I can see we can reduce the sunlight to something like 4 or even 3 to basically give more space to that ambient light from the area. And now let's bring up that exposure a little bit, and I can see right away we can make background a little bit more saturated like this. Okay, I'll press Ctrl B to limit the render here and switch this to cycles, GPU, and I'll enable some denoising. And I use optics for the viewport rendering and open image denoise for the final render. And now I'll just increase the tiles. And let's look at our render preview. I think this looks quite nice. I'm satisfied with the result. This would make for a nice stylized illustration for a website or something. Let me just maybe fix the layout a little bit. Scale these objects around. Yeah, so that's the stylized cartoon house illustration for you. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit that like button, it really helps. And if you're new to the channel and you'd like to see content like this in the future, please hit that subscribe button and the bell button to get notified when I release something new. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.